Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. It's episode 2674 of The Tom Woods Show. We have Michael Malice here with us, host of You're Welcome, which I trust you all listen to for some reason. And he's the author of numerous books. I have one of them right behind me here, which one is it? Dear Reader? That's an old one.
Yes.
Malice had several since then. But I want to, well, first of all, let me say, I was looking at your Twitter feed before I get on here, and a lot of times I see your tweets organically, but every now and then I just go to your Twitter and I just check, or X, and I check it out. And all I can say is, if I may paraphrase Voltaire, if I didn't exist, you would need to invent me.
I don't know what that means in this context.
Because occasionally when you want to say something, when somebody asks you a question like, well, do you know somebody who's a little slow or whatever on something like that? And then it's always me. It's a picture of me. You know, I heard about what happened at Freedom Fest. I heard several references to me in your Freedom Fest talk. They were being live texted to me that you were saying them. I find out about this.
I should hope so, because otherwise it seems mean. It's meant for one of the things that I'm very proud of is when I first started taking these public jabs at you, that a lot of people who are like fans of yours didn't get the joke and were very protective, which their hearts were in the right place, and I can appreciate that, but it was still like, buddy, just come on. I was best man at your wedding, for F's sake. And now we're at a point that even despite the literal mindedness of our respective audiences, which heavily overlap, 0 people don't get the joke. They all appreciate it. Poor Tom is the comment you get all the time. And my favorite moment of this, because it has to be the more ridiculous, the better. I had Cheryl Atkinson on my show.
Oh, I love this.
She was talking about vaccines, the pharmaceutical industry, so on and so forth. And when I end my show with, we're running out of time, was your favorite part of this episode? And she goes, well, that someone, kind of knew the field, because I just did another podcast and the guy didn't know anything about this whole space and I had to educate him. And we just put up your picture. The guy who wrote the Diary of a Psychosis, somehow doesn't know anything about vaccines and how they affected people. And the fact that it's always that smiling face of yours, because there's something so sweet and innocuous about it. It's really, really a great source of fun. And I'm also delighted that so many people now watch it and are like, wait for that Tom hit, and they are just tickled by it. Because it's such an inside joke, too.
Right. I mean, it's not quite as frequent as the old episodes of South Park when Kenny would die in every episode and you knew it was coming.
Sure.
But it's something like that.
Do you know what my there's 2 sources for this, why I came up with it. One is kind of Seinfeld and Newman. How, they had this, and I don't know if you know this, but Jerry Seinfeld was interviewed about this, and he says that Newman was his Lex Luthor, and the source of their enmity was never to be made clear. They just hate each other, not for any real reason, for no reason whatsoever. But the main source was, I love meta humor on shows where the characters are portrayed as real characters. As the audience, we're privy to everything happening on the show, but the characters are living their lives ostensibly, and they're going to have little windows of what they know and what they don't know. And it was a Rodney Dangerfield episode of The Simpsons. And Rodney Dangerfield, the character, brings Homer over for dinner with his birth father, Mr. Burns. And Mr. Burns is, bored to tears by this. And he turns to Homer and goes, Homer, does your son ever bring over like annoying friends and force you to entertain them? And Homer goes, yeah, this kid Milhouse? And it's funny because obviously everyone in the audience knows who Milhouse is, but it makes sense that Mr. Burns wouldn't. But also the hilarity that he would expect Mr. Burns to know who the hell Milhouse is. So that is kind of my thing. Like, this guy Tom Woods. Like, why would half these people? You're a public figure, so it's a little different. But it's still funny when it's just like, I have no idea. And when they don't know who you are, then I can just portray you as whatever. And with a straight face, they'll just smile and nod. They don't know who I'm referring to. But you and everyone at home will sit there just, he calls me every day crying. His viewership is 0. Like, it's really fun.
Well, I've thought to myself, if I ever invite any of those guests on my show, I can always introduce myself as, I'm that guy he was talking about, the sociopath. That's me. So
I have a funny book story to tell you.
oh, tell me.
So, yes, and I'm holding it right here. So James Randi, who you and I are both fans of, spent a career debunking ridiculous claims. And one of the books he had written once was called The Healing Revelations of Mary Baker Eddy. And it was about Mary Baker Eddy, who was the founder of Christian Science. Right. And for people, it's a great branding technique, just like Black Lives Matter. Do you believe in Christianity? Yes. Do you believe in science? Yes. Well, then you're a Christian Scientist. Well, not exactly, because Christian Science speaks that I think they don't take any medicine, that diseases are all a function of like the material world as opposed to whatever. It's this weird kind of quasi-cult. And he talked about in this book how she had the first edition of her book, Science and Health, which is their like kind of Bible, so to speak, no pun intended. And then there was so much crazy stuff in there that she kind of kept editing it as she went along throughout her life. So I've always wanted to get a first edition, which I have. I got one. So it was actually published under her maiden name of Mary Baker Glover. Let me go to the title page to show you people. Hold on. It's from 1875. This was not cheap. There's the title page. Now, because I have OCD, I read every book I own, right? So I'm 100 pages through this thing. Let me tell you, it's not fun. Because have you ever read any of this kind of stuff?
No.
When I say it's mind-numbing, it's like mind-numbing by design, because it's just like wordplay, and I don't even know what she's trying to get at. I'm going to read you just one paragraph, okay? You could see.
Please.
Page 90 at random. I'm just going to read you a paragraph.
Okay.
Magnetism is without a scientific basis. It is one belief or error controlling another one. That spirit mesmerizes or vitalizes matter, giving it life and intelligence, is the fundamental error of mortal man. Spirit cannot impart intelligence to non-intelligence. It has no electricity, etc. Emanations of materiality are electricity, and mesmerism is an unmitigated humbug. The immortal basis of man is not matter, electricity, brains, bones, etc., but spirit that hath understanding, not sense, but soul, and phenomena that proceed from this fundamental principle of being are real and harmonious. I don't know what the hell that means.
And it's a whole book like that.
It's the whole book, and it's not because it's from 1875. Like, I assure you, it's all like talking these circles and blah, 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 blah. And I would have liked it more if there was like references to scripture. If she's like, okay, here, what that means, and try to has a kind of biblical exegesis, that would be interesting at least. But it's not. It's just like talking circles.
So what made you curious to get it?
Because that James Randi book talked about that first edition at length. And apparently it's quasi-suppressed by the church, which is, for people who don't know, it's still a popular church. There's Christian Science reading rooms all over. And what also made me interested in Christian Science is Carol Burnett, who I was a huge fan of as a kid. I'm guessing you were as well, the Carol Burnett Show.
Me too.
The kids these days don't know it. Her memoir, One More Time, which ends with her becoming famous, which I thought was really clever. She was raised with her grandmother, and they were strong Christian scientists. So I wanted to be like, okay, what was this woman raised on? And woof, not fun.
Well, yet the Christian Science Monitor was a very respected mainstream newspaper for quite a long time. And you would find, and I wrote for it from time to time in the 1990s. But in order for me to see my article, I'd have to go to a Christian Science reading room and flip through. There it is.
Is that right?
Article. Yeah. I mean, eventually they would send me one in the physical mail. But in those days, like, I didn't know where to buy it. So I would just go to the Christian Science reading room, and there it was, sitting there.
Yeah, it was extremely reputable.
Do you remember, well, obviously if you read about James Randi or the Amazing Randi, the case of Yuri Geller?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, so, I mean, this is a guy, I mean, it has nothing to do with anything, but as long as we're talking about, who he could bend things, by the use of his mind. And I'm okay with a magician who tells me he can bend things, but we both know he's full of it. But Yuri Geller gave the impression that he had these supernatural powers, and it was James Randi who consulted and worked with Johnny Carson, who wanted to get to the bottom of it, who said, why don't you bring him on, but you have a tray full of items for him to bend, but they're all items that he hasn't pre-screwed with. And on the air, he just said, I don't know, it must be a bad night. I can't do it. And you would think he would have slithered away, but I'm sure he lasted a little while after that. But that was like the worst on-air devastation you could imagine him having.
And it's on YouTube. I watched it not that long ago. And what's really commendable about it is Johnny is not trying to play gotcha. He's not like, aha, you're a phony. He's like, all right, let's see. Like, he was being very fair, very objective. And I think it also speaks to, there's a sociopathy there, I think. If he was just doing as a trick, which many magicians do, you got Doc Dixon right behind you as well. Yeah. Everyone enjoys it. It's wonderful. Even if you know how they do the trick, it's still fun to see because it's still cool what they can do with the techniques with their hands. It's still amazing. So it's just because I don't think he was just doing the tricks. I think he was, manipulating people in other ways as well.
Yeah, yeah. And incidentally, one of the simple moves. There's nothing simple about it, but that a magician can do, a good magician, like a sleight of hand magician, is he's got a card in his palm and he passes his other hand in front of it and it instantly becomes another card. And the thing is, I know how that's done. That's the thing. I know how that's done. And it makes it all the more incredible to watch it because of what he's doing with his hand in that brief instantaneous moment when it's covered and it becomes the other card. And so I told Doc Dixon once, I said, I never want to know how any of your tricks are done, but if I could find out one of them, it would be, and I told him this particular one. And he said, the interesting thing is, it would take me about 10 seconds to explain to you how that's done, but it would take you 20 years to be able to do it.
I love right. That. And it's also interesting. It's Penn and Teller on their show, Fool Us. They sometimes do a trick themselves at the very end. And I've seen at least one episode where they do it. They say, we're going to do it. Then we're going to do it with a transparent apparatus so you can see how we're doing it. And and it's all these tubes. And it's so exciting because you're like, and this is something that's I just find interesting, like blue pill versus red pill people. The amount of people who think that what they see on their screen is as if through a window is astronomical. And especially if you're watching a show which has been edited to create a narrative, it's like, this on some level you would think you'd understand. You're not literally looking into some neighborhood. What really brought this home to me, and I've talked about this example before, I was a big fan of the show Survivor. And on the first season, that's when message boards first started becoming a thing. And there was a message board called Survivor Sucks. It's probably still around. And the second to last episode, there were 4 people left. And it says, next week on Survivor. And Sue turns to Kelly and she goes, man, we got to take out Richard. And people are speculating what's going to happen in the finale. And one of the posters said, you know what? I think Richard's going to go down. Did you hear Sue tell that to Kelly? It's like, we all heard it. You weren't eavesdropping. This already happened. You weren't like in the bushes there. And that was left in for some purpose. Now, it could be left in to be edifying, or it could be left in to be misleading. But the fact of the matter is, this wasn't accidental. And that really kind of clicked how scary it is that a lot of people, just see what's in front of them, especially politicians too, and they just take it at absolute face. I'm sure this happens to you, it happens to me. People feel like they have an intimate friendship with you because on some level they're spending a lot of time. Well, I can speak for Tom. Tom is really, really similar to how he is on screen. Like, I can vouch for this. But a lot of people that you and I interact with are not. And and you don't really have a way of knowing unless you talk to people that they know and so on and so forth. So it's very off-putting sometimes.
It's funny you say that because I was thinking for this conversation, you and I haven't been in touch in a while. And so now obviously we wouldn't discuss everything on the air that we might talk about, but I did think this could actually just be like a conversation that we might have on the phone, just talking about random things that are interesting to us. And that was kind of how I thought about it. And then as I was going through your Twitter X feed, I kept thinking to myself that obviously all your posts are very distinctively Michael Malice. They are all in your style. I recognize your voice in them instantly. And it reminds me of people telling me, these large language models, you can train them to sound like you. You just feed it a whole lot of your content and it'll sound like you. So on a lark, I've tried that. And I'll tell you, Michael, if that's what people think I sound like, then I'm doing a terrible job. This is a mortifying caricature of what I sound like. I would never use this ridiculous tool.
So to Tom's editor, please put in that clip right now from Quantum Leap where he looks at that mirror inside the door at this moment.
I don't know the reference.
It's when he opens Quantum Leap, every episode ends with him jumping into a new body, right? And this one clip, which is very popular on social media as a reply, he is wearing this Bullwinkle shirt and he opens the door to there's a mirror, on the inside the door. And he goes, "I'm retarded." And in the mirror is someone with Down syndrome.
I'm retarded?
I'm seeing myself reflected back at me, and I'm not liking it.
Yeah, but sometimes it's to the point where they're just a JPEG of that shot of him looking down speaks for that whole clip, and people who don't know the clip will not get the reference at all.
Do you use any of these things for anything? Like, do you use like Grok or anything like that for anything useful?
First of all, I think you and I I can't speak for you, but I think too much of a boomer for this kind of stuff. But I am actually extremely concerned by where AI is going, because I think it's wildly inaccurate often. And I have seen repeatedly now, we've crossed this point that normies are outsourcing their thinking to it. I'll give you one example that just happened. I posted the video for a song which I love, and I'm sure you love, and is very beloved, Toto's song Africa, right?
Everyone likes that.
It's a great song. And someone commented, I thought the lyric was, I don't remember what they said. And I said, I thought the lyric was, I felt some rains down in Africa. The line is, I blessed some rains down in Africa. I thought all my life it was, I felt some rains down in Africa, which makes more, and I go, which makes more sense, which makes more sense. I meant it makes more sense than the original lyric, not his mischaracterization. So the guy replies, Grok, which of these two makes more sense, comparing his or my own? And I'm like, the fact that you're asking a computer to make a subject, first of all, we're not in competition. I wasn't comparing myself to you.
Right.
But even if we were, that you're asking this computer to make this extremely and by the way, Grok sided with me, so I'm not even being a sore loser. To make this extremely subjective decision for you, I find extremely disturbing. I've seen it. I've put up a picture of you from the Politically Incorrect series we've done. And it says, this is definitely Bob Murphy from Ego and Hubris. Bob Murphy is not Ego and Hubris. And I'm arguing, goes, okay, Michael, you're trolling. It is definitely, use the word definitely. It is definitely from Ego and Hubris. And I'm like, if I were a normie who right now, doesn't even have the capacity to go to Wikipedia, I would take that as gospel. There's another very odd example. I Googled Gertrude Stein, who's a modernist writer, had a book called Lucy Church Amiably, right? And it's gibberish, the book, but even worse than Mary Baker Glover because it's not even in sentences. And it's a pun. There's a girl named Lucy Church, but there's also a place in Lucy, France, which has a church in it. And out of nowhere, when I just Googled Gertrude Stein, Lucy Church Amiably, the Google AI, I forget what it's called, it's Gemini, says, this is from Edith Stein. I don't know who Edith Stein is or where Edith was pulled from, who is known for using puns in her writing. She was not known for using puns in her writing. So when we were kids, I remember reading about the troubles with programming AI. One example that they used was they fed like the encyclopedia to some computer, and its logical conclusion was everyone born before 1910 was famous, which, okay, you could understand the thought process there. But I think things are getting, I think people are getting dumber. I think discourse is getting dumber. And I think this is pushing us very quickly in a brave new world direction.
Yeah, well, I have a lot of the same concerns. I have put it to good use in some limited cases, but like I know people who are using it to like write their emails for their email marketing with, and I would just be mortified to do that. It's so obviously, I mean, I guess you can start with that and then fiddle with it, but I would be mortified. What I have done, I've tried, is I've said, here's what I've written an email about, and I tend to write off the wall things. So I'd like 12 email subject line ideas for this email. And usually all 12 of them are cringe. Horrible. I would never send an email with that subject line. But occasionally 11 of them are terrible, and one of them makes me think I can work with that. But I do that as a last resort when I'm desperate. And now I understand that I believe Google with Gmail is going to start punishing, that is to say, putting emails into the spam folder if they detect that it's all AI generated. On the other hand, I don't know how I feel about it scanning my emails for AI at the same time.
Well, it scans your emails for spam anyway, so that's kind of neither here nor there.
I guess so.
I'll
so
give you
it is looking for that.
I'll give you another example, which is hilarious. Some very, very crazy person I know, who you know who I'm talking about, the audience won't, is involved in another lawsuit, and they're representing themselves, as crazy people are wont to do, and they're using AI to write their legal briefs. And what it's doing is it's creating references to cases that don't exist. So opposing counsel's like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, that's a big problem. Hey gang, I have a friend whose IQ I would estimate as being somewhere in the neighborhood of about 751. And he's the kind of guy you want in your corner. I'm talking, of course, about the great Matthew Sercely, a tax attorney who helps liberty-minded folks just like you keep more of your money and stay out of trouble with the IRS. This guy has the same philosophy you do, so he wants to keep every dollar he can out of the hands of the IRS. And he'll use every one of his 751 IQ points to save you every last dollar possible. By the way, yes, I said attorney, not CPA. And that means your conversations with him are protected by attorney-client privilege. That's a very big deal. You can't get that kind of protection from your accountant. And Matt is one of us. He's been on the Tom Woods cruise. He's been at my murder mystery parties. He's listened to the Tom Woods show since the very beginning. He's a real OG. He doesn't just do taxes. He builds strategies to legally starve the state. Entity structuring, income shifting, advanced planning. This is war by spreadsheet. If you're running a business or even thinking about one, you need someone like Matthew in your corner. He knows how to legally reduce your tax burden, structure your business the right way, and avoid trouble while keeping every dollar you're entitled to. Go to agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. That's AGORIST taxadvice.com/woods and grab your free Agorist Tax Toolkit. It's full of powerful tools and templates you can use to get your business in order, track your expenses, and reduce how much the IRS takes from you without crossing any lines. Again, that's agoristtaxadvice.com/woods. Take the first step to keeping what's yours. I had Stephen Wolfram, who's a genius on many levels on my show, and we talked briefly about the problem of its inability to show humility. Its inability to say, I just don't know the answer. Now sometimes on Grok, it will say, based on the available information, there is no way to know, whether so-and-so got remarried or something like that. But in terms of bibliographical references, it's just embarrassing. Now, I don't know if it's gotten any better since I asked it to develop a syllabus on something, just for fun. I wanted to see what it would pick. And it was all useless. Now those things are fixable, presumably, because, it has to be said, it is remarkable, the technology, and particularly when there was a recent study where people were given 2 conversations online, and they had to figure out which one of the 2 was a human being. And 73% of the time, they picked the large language model. They were sure that was the human being.
Well, there's a couple of points here. One is it's very good for art. I use it for my book cover. If I use it for memes all the time, when Hulk Hogan passed away last week, I said, make a drawing of Hulk Hogan hugging George Floyd in heaven while Ozzy Osbourne applauds.
I saw that.
It was perfect. And I put it up and everyone was angry. It was wonderful. But my concern isn't that it's bad. My concern is that it's going to be good because, as you point out, right now, then there's some are better than others in different contexts. That's fine. It is better at detecting humor than many people. It is funnier than many people. It is if you asked many people to defend libertarianism or defend gun rights or oppose gun rights, not only do you know what they'd say, you know how they say it. We could write the script verbatim. I could tell it, make this argument in a creative way, and it would be better at it than many people. And we're now comparing it not to average people. If you're arguing politics, you have to have some degree of intelligence to understand concepts, so on and so forth. So I'm very concerned right now. What's it called? What's the one with the self-driving cars? Waymo. In San Francisco,
Oh, yeah.
Waymo has overtaken Lyft to be number 2. So, and I've talked about this with other people. What happens to that 50-year-old mom who wants some pocket money? What is she going to be? What are you going to tell her to work in a factory? Where are you going to put her that she can generate value? What advantage does she have over AI? And it's getting harder and harder to find a space for her. And I don't know what that's going to mean.
Well, I've been thinking about it in the area of let's say creative work, like creative writing or movies, fiction, that sort of thing. At first, the issue people identified was it's not good at coming up with original ideas. It can take what's existing out there and distill it and spit something interesting out. But generating something from scratch, it's not as good. But it's gotten much better, apparently.
Yes.
And the thing is, so what I've been saying is, even if it's possible, maybe you'll disagree with me on this, but even if it's possible for AI to generate a really great novel, I feel like when I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, I feel like I'm making a connection with Douglas Adams, the human being.
That's right.
And so I'm not looking for the world's greatest novel per se, in the same way that if I go to a running race, I don't say, well, if we got rid of all these human beings and put cheetahs or leopards in there, it would be a lot faster. I'm not looking for speed per se. I'm looking at members of my species exerting themselves in a way that requires dedication and practice is impressive to me, and I want to celebrate that. Well, likewise, I'm looking for the best creative output of somebody like me. I'm not looking for what could some machine do. I'm sure some machine could do a good job, but that's not. I feel like there's a meeting of the minds with one human being and another with this. And other people say, I'm full of it and I shouldn't think that way. But that is the way I think.
I don't think that is the way you think, and here's why. Because you've never met Douglas Adams, right? And you know Douglas Adams just as well as you know Homer Simpson, who obviously, under any misconceptions, does exist, right? So what would happen is you would have an AI author, and they would have some kind of avatar of a kind. Maybe they'd even lie about it. I mean, just like those Nancy Drew books or V.C. Andrews, there's certain authors who are publishing books by ghostwriters many years after their death, and you would have a connection with. Here's another very obvious thing that's going to happen. I think within a year, I think it's already almost there. Which is, we all know what it's like. I have an iPod I put on random, or when you walk into a store or you use your Spotify, and sometimes it just really hits that perfect song. And if I asked you, what song do you want to hear now? Maybe you wouldn't know, but sometimes it knows better than you. Like, oh crap, oh man, I'm really in the mood for this right now, right?
Right.
I don't think it's going to be very hard for it to have your brainwaves and have that perfect playlist wherever you go. But here's why that's an issue, because there's this question in science. I forget what it's called, not Christian Science, real science. If there are so many aliens out there, and mathematically speaking, there have to be, because if you just look at statistics, there's like billions of possibilities. And, with some of them are going to be billions of years older than Earth. A billion years, imagine our technology is going to create. And why haven't we had contact yet? Right? That's like a big question in astrophysics. And one of the theories is this idea of the lotus eaters, that at a certain point when technology becomes advanced enough, people or the entity, the animals, whatever they are, and that's the beings on that planet, are just in a perpetual pleasure loop, right? And they just are living in a state of perfect bliss all the time. And there's no need to, and if they, instead of traveling to Earth, the Matrix could just put them to travel to Earth. So I'm very scared that these algorithms, if we, when we were kids, they called the TV the boob tube. And there was a lot of hand wringing about people just sit in front of that TV for hours a day and their brains melt away, which is still a thing, I think, with like people who are slightly older. But if you have a TV that's smart enough to tell you what you want to see even better than this is going to be a sea change in how human beings live.
I guess I maybe just don't know how to articulate my unease with it properly. Like, let's say, I mean, obviously I'm happily married. Let's say I go on some online service and I start chatting with somebody who appears to be a woman. And then at the end of the conversation, let's say we've chatted for 3 weeks. We haven't spoken on the phone, but we've chatted for 3 weeks. And we've had very, very meaningful exchanges. And then I find out it was all a trick. This is an AI bot and not real at all. Those conversations would be instantly without value to me. They would lose all their value.
It would be of interest. It would be of interest. It would be value. It would have value as something of interest. Like, oh, wow. Don't you think?
In that limited sense, yes, but I would feel like I was tricked. I mean, of course, because I was tricked.
Right.
And I guess if I go to the movie theater and there's a movie that I'm told the actors are all AI, the plot was developed by AI, the whole thing was put up by AI, I guess I would know that going in. I guess I'm saying I'm a romantic enough that I guess I still, even as flawed as human beings are, I still want what they produced. I still want that, even if I might get 20% more enjoyment, if I can measure that. I still just, I want a world where I deal with other people. And I say that as somebody who's not particularly fond of most people.
But if you watch Superman, you don't think he's really flying, obviously.
No, I know, but at least I know he's Christopher Reeve. I know he's a person.
So if they used AI to make another Christopher Reeve movie, or like on YouTube, I'm sure we have technology right now. I'm sure it's pretty crappy at this point, but let's give it 5 years, where you could say, okay, AI, make, even easier. He's an easier prompt. Make the first Christopher Reeve movie, but instead of Margot Kidder, Lois Lane is played by Marilyn Monroe. Just replace her, right? Like how they replaced all the guns in E.T. I don't think that'd be very hard to do. I don't think that would, in any way, knowing that they're both dead, change anything.
I don't know. I got to mull this over. In the comments, are there people who are kind of getting what I'm trying to say, but I can't say. If there were an AI bot here instead of me, it would be able to probably explain what makes me so uneasy about this world. Like, I don't like Sonic anyway, but I guess I don't want a robot serving me, even if it can do it more efficiently. I guess
Sonic
I just don't.
Are you crazy?
I don't want that, because then I could go through my entire life, in principle, avoiding all human contact. And I don't think that's why I'm here. No matter how efficient it is, I don't think that's why I'm here.
I agree with you. That's not why you're here. And I agree with you. That's disturbing. I just don't think those are good examples of why this is an issue.
Well, see, I don't know. Like even the art. I look at these AI memes in my Facebook feed, and I feel like this is like you're like polluting my feed with this. Like, I can recognize it. It's instantly recognizable as AI art, and I find it absolutely unappealing. And I suppose there will come some day where I won't be able to tell the difference, but right now I can. And I don't know. I mean, like, there's an actual, and I know I'm talking the opposite of the way I talk most of the time about, well, if we have this mechanical way of doing things, it frees up human labor to do other things. I get it, but I never thought to myself, we need to free up the labor of artists so that they can go work in a factory. I want to free them up from the factory so they can go work as artists. And now they can't do that?
No. I think what you're referring to, what you're trying to get at, is the uncanny valley, where things, for the people who don't know, it's this term about, like, if you have like a mannequin, if it just looks like a mannequin or like a robot, you're fine. But when it looks close to human but a little bit off, there's this liminal space where it's very disturbing to people. And it's unpleasant because you're like, it's like, I guess, like talking to a sociopath or something like that, right? And I think your point is taken, because I hate that the word art is used for like something you would look at a museum and, contemplate, or like, some kind of medieval painting where you're just faced with, God and just the sense of reverence and knowing that this has been here for hundreds of years and people have prayed before it, and now it's in front of me and I can look at every little detail and there's something almost literally magical about it, as opposed to something a computer made in 5 seconds. I mean, to call them both art, I think, is really stretching the term. So in that sense, yeah, it's useful for like crap. But I think I don't like the glibness with which a lot of people who are libertarians are like, well, if the market produced it, it's all upside. And even if something's largely upside, there's still downside sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, if I cure cancer tomorrow, all these oncologists are going to be out of work. I still want that to happen. And I'm sure every one of them would be like, don't worry about me, I'll be fine. I'll find some other job.
Yeah,
but that's still a downside.
If it means cancer can be cured, I'll take it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I want to talk about a whole different thing, by the way. And I don't have that much to say about it, but I think of all my friends, I think you would have appreciated it the most because I don't know. Sometimes people get the wrong impression from you about you. They definitely get the wrong impression about me on my Twitter because I'm just a nasty SOB, you know?
Oh, I think the wrong impression of you from me.
Oh, well, that's probably also true. But by the way, I was at the Mises Institute last week and they took new headshots because that awful picture of me that you keep using is from 10 years ago from the Mises headshot.
I love that picture.
I hate that picture so much.
But you used it for your...
No. They took two pictures of me from that set. I use one of them. You use the other. You use the one where I look a little bit more retarded.
Okay, I Googled it, honestly, so I wasn't even...
Okay, no, it doesn't matter. No, I know, I get it. No, it's a perfect picture for that. You should never stop using it, no matter how old I get. But the thing is, like, you can appreciate something like what I'm about to bring up. So, because I don't know, I think there's something about... I feel like you love life and all its possibilities almost more than anybody I know. And so...
Oh, wow.
For me, you know, we know Ozzy Osbourne just died, but I watched that last... I didn't care about any of the bands before him, but I watched the Ozzy solo set that he did at his very last concert in Birmingham in early July, and then he did a Black Sabbath set, and then that was it. Well, I mean, I'm not a huge Ozzy fan. Like, I never owned any of his music or anything like that, but I know some of his material. But I watched it just because the guy had Parkinson's, and he'd been suffering, and he'd been out of the limelight, and he'd wanted to tour, and it was rough. And he was at a point where not only could he not walk, he couldn't even stand. But they got around that by putting him in a throne beneath the stage and elevating it. And so for an hour, half an hour for his set, half an hour for the Black Sabbath set, he kept those people absolutely spellbound despite having an absolutely debilitating condition. It was like he was shaking his fist in the air at it in the best possible sense. And then not 3 weeks later, he's gone. I mean, that is just the most... to me, that is the most inspiring departure I've almost ever seen. And I say this as somebody, I'm not particularly an Ozzy fan, but wow, after that, like I started reading I want to know everything there was to know about him. So I don't know. I mean, like, did that have any impression on you? Because it really affected me.
I was a fan of him as a person and Sharon as a person. I remember, I brought back this word so I can use it. Many years ago, must have been 20 years ago, she was having a debate with Insane Clown Posse on Howard Stern's show because the band that she managed, I think it was called Cold Chamber, were opening for ICP. It was a big misfit. They fired them. It got very heated. Sharon Osbourne's no joke, and ICP, they sing about murdering, stabbing people in a very humorous way. And they're having this debate, and it's really kind of a fun debate because it's like they hate each other, but they're both putting on a show. So it's really fun for the audience. And she's talking in her British accent, and Violent J goes, "How am I supposed to debate her when she's standing there yelling French at me?" Right? And she just goes, "The reason you can't understand English is because you're fucking retarded." And it was just this glorious moment. And he's laughing, like they're trying not to laugh, but it's like very WWF kind of thing. I recently had someone I was talking to who was very, very deep in conspiracy theory world, which I don't want to say who it is. And they were talking about, Satanism, so on and so forth. And I'm like, yeah, but it's like, look at Ozzy Osbourne, right? And he's like, no. Like, that's kind of like boiling the frog. And I'm just like, oh, for the love of, like, I if you're going to one day listen to Black Sabbath and the next day you're, sacrificing children, it's really not Ozzy's fault.
Yeah,
there was something else that was in you first.
No, it's almost no. I mean, I refuse to argue with people like that because A lot of them come from my side, and they're just
Yes.
embarrassing. They don't know anything, and it's just embarrassing. So don't do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole thing blew me away. And then,
this is what I wanted to talk about. So they remind me of something very similar happened that I saw, which was not long before he died. I saw Gilbert Gottfried at Skankfest. Now, I don't remember what he died from, but it was an illness he had been dealing with, which had not been made public. And
by the way, I thought he was hysterical. I loved Gilbert Gottfried.
How can you not?
Yeah.
And I'll tell everyone my favorite Gilbert Gottfried moment, which was during the roast of Pam Anderson. And I'll even do the voice. And Pam Anderson is walking down the beach and she sees a genie lamp and she rubs the genie lamp and the genie says, "Pam Anderson, what is your wish?" And she goes, "I wish that my private parts were tight again." And Genie goes, "Pam Anderson, my powers are only so limited. What other wish do you have instead?" And she goes, "I wish my show VIP were a big hit." He goes, "Let's go back to that private parts thing." Like he's shaking. And he dropped the voice. It was so amazing. But the point is, I saw him backstage and I have never seen someone who so clearly, other than in a hospital, in a bad way. He's a small person, slumped in his chair. I didn't even want to approach him because I knew I'd met his wife at a party previously. So I said hi to her, but it was oh, wow. And then they call out his name and he comes out, you'd never know it. And then the second his set is done, he just goes back. And I was very, very worried for him. And sure enough, not that long after, he passed.
Wow. Yeah. See, with Ozzy, I heard that he went off the pain meds so that he could be more coherent for the show. So who knows what he was ordinarily like or what it felt to him being on the stage. But obviously the emotion of being on that stage overwhelms any physical feeling, I'm sure. And in fact, the fact that they're performing it in Birmingham, England, where they all came from, and his childhood home is a stone's throw from there. Again, I just can't get over that they somehow took a guy, couldn't even stand up, and let him put on a concert that just overwhelmed everybody for an hour. It was like, in a way, staring in the face of death and coming out triumphant.
Yeah, and saying, "I'm going out on my terms, not yours."
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, you could spend the rest of your life digging out hilarious one-liners from that guy. I mean, it's wild. All right. I'm going to run one more thing by and then we're going to call it a day. On your Twitter feed, you posted, it was one of these memes about hard to swallow pills. And this particular hard to swallow pill is there's a ceiling to how many people can be red pilled, and it's pretty low.
Yes.
Now, it took me a long time to realize that, but I agree with you. So how do you stay personally optimistic in the face of a world in which the vast majority of people will never see reality clearly?
I get asked this a lot, and I have to tell you, there's some times when you feel like I something must be wrong with me because everyone else thinks something and I don't see it that way and I don't understand how they see it. I remember when I was in, this isn't ego and hubris, unlike what Grok said. I remember in second grade, this girl Lisa got up and we all had to read some essay we wrote. And the conclusion to her essay was, when you share, you always get more. And I started laughing and no one else was laughing. And I'm like, okay, I'm on another planet because what are you talking about, lady? And David Sedaris is another one. People are big fans of his. And I do think he is a good writer, but I can't even pick up where the punchlines are. And people think it's absolutely hilarious. I'm like, it's not like Big Bang Theory where I see what the jokes are and I think they're terrible. I'm like, I don't see what you are reacting to. So this question, I don't understand it because I'm not a fan of, I don't believe in democracy, right? So was it Sturgeon's law? Let me pull this up. I want to get the attribution correct. I think it's Sturgeon's law. Yes, Sturgeon's law is an adage that says 90% of everything is crap. I don't think any government ever is heavily correlated with the wishes of the masses. I think I agree with Emma Goldman when she pointed out, she's as left-wing as they come. She's the left of Lenin, that the majority cannot reason. And I don't understand what possible relevance that is, because if I go into a store, I'm buying one book out of hundreds. If I go to a grocery store, I'm buying, let's suppose, maximum 20 items out of hundreds. You and I, any human being, has a very small window of humans you can make relationship with just at a time. So if you go to a farm, there's one farmer and like how many sheep, how many cows? I don't understand the relevance of pointing out that even if it's 80% of people are different. I don't get it. Like, who cares? Like, why should I care?
Well, do you mean in the sense that in your own particular circle, you don't draw from any of that 80% anyway? So in your world, they may as well not exist?
But in anyone, no one, other than like if you're at work, you have to deal with them or your customers, like, what relevance is it that a lot of people out there who you're never going to really have to deal with? And in fact, it's liberating because instead of wasting your breath on social media trying to argue with someone until you're blue in the face, be like, you're quite literally the equivalent of arguing with the television. Like, what are you doing? I don't get it.
Yeah, but I guess the point is, if it were the other way around with the 80-20, we would be much closer to having the kind of world we would prefer to live in.
That's probably true. That's probably true.
But I can't bring that about, so I guess that's that. But that's why it matters. And so you might be inclined to say, oh, well, this stinks. Now I can't have the world I want because I'm surrounded by these people.
But I can't have the world I want not because of these people. So there's 535 congressmen, 9 Supreme Court justices, 1 president. They're going to do what they want. I mean, look at the Iraq War. Even when the numbers were hugely against it, look at Obamacare, the numbers are hugely against it. They did whatever they wanted. And I don't think the impediment to my life or to yours is because there's a lot of flotsam out there.
Well, true, but I think back to the old days. Like, I thought because of the Ron Paul campaigns that a huge number of people were going to start to understand the world. And it was a huge number, just not nearly huge enough.
It wasn't a huge number. It was never a huge number.
He technically got a few million votes, which to me is a huge number. But
out of 350 million.
It's all relative. Yes, of course. Right. I get it. But I think in 1957, if you had laid out these ideas, I don't think he would have gotten a few million.
But this is what I'm saying. The ceiling. So if let's suppose he got 7 million votes. Let's suppose. Okay, that's still 2% of the population. How is that a huge number? That's what I'm talking about, the ceiling being low.
I mean the huge number compared to my personal expectations. Like, I didn't realize there were 7 million or however many million who would actually bother to listen.
Wait, you didn't think 2% of the population were capable of having liberty as their highest value?
1 out of 50 people being willing to say, let's abolish the Federal Reserve, that would have surprised me.
I don't think that, no. Now this is where you're wrong. They didn't all say that. All they said is, I like Ron Paul. So a huge chunk of Ron Paul fans don't know what the Federal Reserve is, or will say we should abolish the Federal Reserve because, you know what, I like what this guy says on all these other issues, so I don't really know what this is, but I'll go along with it.
Yeah, and that's maybe so. Fine. Maybe so.
Right. So like, if you're like very anti-war and you also think it's crazy to lock people up for weed, it's like, you know what, this guy makes a lot of sense. I'm going to take the whole package. And that's perfectly fine. We can't be expected to know everything about every issue or to even understand every issue. But the point is, even there, they're not all thoroughgoing, Rothbardians.
Hey, gang, if you're worried about the value of your hard-earned savings getting eaten away by inflation, trade wars, or reckless Fed policy, it's time to secure and grow your wealth in something they can't inflate away, and that's gold. But a lot of gold owners just buy gold and then let it sit there collecting dust, and then feel like they're missing out on the growth happening in other asset classes. That's why I lease my gold with monetary metals. I can earn a 4% annual yield paid in gold every single month while still owning my ounces. Again, the yield you earn is paid in ounces of physical gold, which you get in addition to any price appreciation from gold during the year, which, as you know, continues to break all-time highs in 2025. Join me and thousands of happy clients who are earning a gold income every single month. This is a no-brainer for those looking to earn an honest return in honest money. The Fed can print dollars, they can't print gold. Now's the time for you to start growing your wealth in ounces. Go to monetary-metals.com/woods to learn more. That's monetary-metals.com/woods. I want to ask you before we go.
Wait, do you disagree with what I just said, though?
No, I don't, because that is the way people think. I mean, even I'm sure there's some minutia about like Dr. Paul's agricultural policy that I don't know about.
Of course.
I, as you say, I trust his judgment.
Right.
I'm sure he's good on it. I'm sure whatever is.
And you know what? And you know what? Even if he's bad at it, you know what? If I get 90% of what I want, he sucks on 10. I'm okay. I'm fine.
Yes.
It's better than 0.
Yes. Well, I don't know if this is a sore subject, but let's say, so here we are, a little bit more than halfway through 2025. 2020 was a pretty insane year because of COVID and restrictions that nobody or very few people predicted that we were going to have something that wide-ranging. 2025 is not 2020 level, but it's still wild. And
Yes.
if you were to say, okay, it's the end of July 2025, if I were a betting man and I were handicapping where the parties stand, and I know you're not a political guy, but you like Rothbard, who didn't vote and wasn't a political guy either, he still watched it. He still was interested in it. He followed it. He ridiculed it a lot of the times. But how would you handicap where the two major parties are right now? Because I know that for a while in 2025, there were a lot of people on the right who thought the Democrats are finished. And I always feel like whenever you say the Democrats are finished, that's a dangerous place to be because they never are.
God bless you for saying that, because it's physically painful to hear. I remember when I was in high school, I was a big Rush Limbaugh fan, and his second book was called See, I Told You So. And the conclusory chapter is, guys, you're hearing the death knells of liberalism. This is the end of the road. They're going away. This is in the 90s. And for these kind of boomer conservatives, the Democratic Party's destruction is one election away. And when you look at, again, back to The Simpsons, when Mr. Burns goes to watch Yale versus Harvard, and he goes, I don't even know why Harvard bothers to show up. They lose almost half the games. So you have a 53-47 majority in the Senate. The Republicans have the smallest majority in the House ever, 3 or 5 seats. Officer Harris just got 2% less of the vote than Trump. So you have extremely strong candidate on one side, alcoholic simpleton on the other, and she still, for that, with 5 months of a campaign, got 47-48% of the vote. That's not a blowout. If you compare 1988 with Bush versus Dukakis, where you had a far weaker Republican candidate and a far stronger Democratic candidate, and Bush got 470 electoral votes, something insane.
Yeah.
So this idea that the Democratic Party, which is the oldest political party on earth, whose only concern is seizing and maintaining power, is going to dissolve, makes no sense, because here's what they can do. They can take the 10 issues that the Republicans are good on and run on those 9 of them. And the 10th one, they'll be the difference. Why wouldn't they? And people are like, their base would never let them do that. Do you think the base runs the Democratic Party? If the base ran the Democratic Party, how the F was Joe Biden the nominee? There's not one person in that Democratic base who liked Joe Biden. And they all fell in line. And I would remind people of 2020, it was the weekend before Super Tuesday. Bernie was ahead in every poll in every state, except for Amy Klobuchar's home state of Minnesota. And someone got the call, and Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg, we're folding our campaign. We're going to endorse Biden. And no one, and what about Officer Harris in the nomination? So I think it's all upside for the Democratic Party. I think they're in a very good position because they're going to have some great data in 2026, because they're going to run the AOC candidates in some races. They're going to run the Biden corporate hack candidates in other races. They're going to see who the voters go for. And that's the wing that you run in 2028. I think this idea that there's an organic continuation of MAGA after Trump is crazy. MAGA is very much a function of his personality and some kind of vague nationalism and patriotism. I think it's very hard to have MAGA without him, or just like having Reaganomics without Reagan, or Thatcherism without Thatcher. It's not really a thing. So I do think the Democratic Party is they're at their lowest approval ratings ever. They've been decimated, but that means they're kind of free to experiment. And I'll give you some inside baseball on this issue. So as people watching this certainly know, in 2024, the fact that Trump and Vance did a lot of podcasts is credited with doing a lot to have them have that big win that they did in 2024. Just like Obama in 2012 with his data mining. Everyone's like, oh, the Democrats are never going to lose again because they figured out the internet and the Republicans are screwed. And then 4 years later, some real estate developer tweeted his way into the presidency. Now, Democratic politicians are being pitched to podcasts to do their shows. Now, I don't think they know what a podcast is or that they're going to be good at it, but I got pitched the head of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, I forget the guy's name, Senator Murphy from Connecticut, and I've never said yes as fast to anyone in my life, Jasmine Crockett. Now, I made them go back to this publicity firm and say, make sure these people realize they're committing for an hour, they can't bounce, and this isn't going to be, can I swear, you're going to have to bleep this out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said, this isn't going to be a warm blowjob. And I said, make sure you use that word because these people need to understand this is some corporate hack 60-minute situation. This is the podcasting space, which is very different. So I don't like ambushing people. So if Jasmine Crockett or Chris Murphy is going to do my show, I want them to come in knowing what they're in for. And because I don't want them to bounce. I also don't want to be a bad host. So I think there's a lot of money and power behind the Democrats. And this, one last point. I was just on Gutfeld very recently. And the first episode that I was back on, Greg's monologue is about how it's the quote, since the Democrats are only for things that are terrible, they're never going to win again. And I was the first person who agreed with him and everyone's cheering. And it comes to me and I'm like, oh crap, they're going to call me a communist for disagreeing. And I said, guys, it's not even the end of the first quarter. And you're acting like you won the Super Bowl. These people are playing the long game. This is insane to be spiking the ball. And thankfully, everyone cheered. And Kat and Tyrus, who spoke after me, agreed with me. But this is an almost religious idea that we have this imminent victory of the children of the light over the children of darkness. And it's always a perpetual one election away. And it's completely insane delusional. And yes, you can say that the Democrats are insane delusional, but so is a lot of the electorate.
Yeah. Oh, and not to mention, let's just end with this. The Democrats typically have exactly the opposite view, which is that they are on the verge of being vanquished, that, totalitarianism has taken over. There's no hope they're going to be wiped out. They don't generally speak in terms of they are on the verge of absolute victory. It's always the opposite. Never.
That's right. Good. That's insightful. I didn't even realize that. You're right. Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonder what
you should be, and that's a great motivator. Because if you're on the verge of catastrophe, you better get out and vote and get your friends to vote.
Yes, exactly. That's the message you need. All right, Michael Malice. When anyone, usually when you're on a podcast, at the end they just say, "All right, thanks for being on." But I always let the guest promote something. So obviously, people should listen to You're Welcome. But is there anything else you want to plug or any link or anything?
Yes. So Not Sick of Winning is my new .com, my new Trump book, which has aged like fine milk. And it's much easier to promote on Fox than on shows like this, to be honest. But I did it out of spite to kind of cut the corporate publishers to pass. Something that I think the audience will be much more amenable to is this weekend I will be debating the police on Timcast in DC. So if you go to Timcast Live, I'm sure you get the tickets. It'll be a lot of fun to see. And you want to see the outfit I have?
Yeah, sure.
I don't have it here, but I will be in full police regalia.
Oh, of course you will.
Tom, where are you coming from today? Have you been drinking?
Say again?
Where have you been coming from today, Tom?
Yeah.
Have you been drinking?
Yeah. I wish I'd had I'd love to have a good comeback to that or a good story or something to tell them, but I don't know what I would do if I were questioned.
You don't want to come back with the cops. You're playing with fire.
Yeah. Well, see, that's interesting to hear you say that because you hear a lot of chest thumping from libertarians about stuff like that. But geez, just go on your way. Go home and write your denunciation.
I'm sorry. Yeah, being being raised in a Russian household, being born in the Soviet Union. This is something that frustrates me with Americans. Like with Ottawa beer in North Korea. Like they really think they're invincible. It's like And this sovereign citizen movement, God bless them, like their hearts are in the right place. But let me tell everyone listening to this, let me tell you, brother, there is no magic sequence of words that will cause that thug who's having a bad day who has the power to put you in a cage for no reason at his mercy, that you are going to get him to be a good person. That's not a thing. Get that out of your head.
I know, and a lot of us, because we make our livings putting words together, sometimes we have this sense, not just with police or anybody else, but in relationships or people we meet, at a debate or something. We think that, well, wait a minute, I'm good at this. I'm a wordsmith. I'll think of the argument that wins you over, and it's few and far between.
I'm confident I'm going to do better in this debate than I did against yours.
Well, that's, the easy response to that is that wouldn't be very difficult. But why would I say something like that to my dear friend, Michael Malice? Michael, thanks for your time today.
Always a pleasure, Tom.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.